I'm Andrew Barth on the scene in Pikesville, where Irv Kovens came home today. There were no neighbors or signs outside, but inside his family had gathered for a quiet welcome. He made it clear he did not want to see reporters, but a doorman said Kovens greeted him warmly. We went to a few old Kovens haunts, like this Pikesville restaurant where Irv and Marvin Mandel used to have Sunday breakfast together, presiding over a table full of boyhood friends and cutting political deals. But today, the restaurant manager declined comment on Kovens' return. At the furniture store that bears his name, a store started by his father, Kovens hadn't been seen and wasn't expected. The manager said he no longer owns or works for the company. A competitor up the street said he is glad Kovens is free now, and we heard that several times during the day. Kovens operated from an upstairs office here until he went to prison. The telephones were his links to the downtown political establishment. Now it's expected he'll move to Florida and probably never again exert much influence over the political life of Maryland. I'm Andrew Barth on the scene on West Baltimore Street.
Although the Science Center can explain some of the most complex scientific mysteries of the universe, it hasn't figured out how to deal with inflation, which is also sky high. 1/3 of the staff has already been laid off. So the chairman of the board, Howard Skaggs, says he'll ask Governor Hughes, Mayor Schaefer, and the county executives to give the Science Center more money.
Need the money to help the Science Center survive. It's an immediate need.
A major part of the problem is low attendance, which some blame on the high admission price.
But also keep in mind there are literally busloads of children that come down there every day to whom the services are provided free, not only to school children, but their teachers and their counselors. And this is as it should be. This is part of the service that the Science Center should be providing.
But despite plans to increase the admission charge, Mr. Skaggs says he thinks it might be better to lower it.
It would just seem to me that raising the price is not always the solution to a problem not making money. Maybe we're not getting enough people at 2.5. Maybe we could get more at 2. I don't know, but I want to study it. I want to be sure that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market by raising it. You've already asked the question. A lot of people say it's too much now. If it is, I hope to reduce it, provided we can see that we're going to increase the attendance.
He says the people must support the Science Center or they will lose it. I'm Jack Bowden on the scene.
Indianapolis Hoosier Dome, where the Colts now play, was built with $30 million in private donations, gifts, and a 1% restaurant tax. Here in Baltimore, such donations are unlikely, and the tax may not be necessary. That's according to Barton Harvey of the Alex Brown & Sons Investment House. He thinks private individuals here would invest in a stadium to get the tax benefits. Taxpayers would have to foot the rest of the bill, but would partly be paid back by rent from the teams that play in the stadium and by leasing luxury skyboxes, like this one at Yankee Stadium, leasing them to corporations. Stadium Joe de Blasi has some ideas of his own. The city councilman's called that because he's been fighting for a new stadium for Port Covington in his district. He says the city could help pay for a stadium by running a park and ride service at the stadium parking lot.
A park and ride facility tied to that could create additional revenue and also alleviate the serious parking problem that we have downtown. We could accommodate not only the office worker but the tourist and run a shuttle service to Harbor Place and back from the Port Covington site.
It's a task force set up by Mayor Schaefer that's calling for a new stadium. The mayor himself is said to agree with the task force. But after a news conference today on helping the homeless, the mayor refused to make any comments and chastised reporters who dared ask for one.
You think I want to talk about this stadium when I really got this on my mind? I don't want to talk about the stadium.
It is simply too soon to know for sure who would pay for a new stadium or how they would pay for it. But you can just about be sure that some kind of public money will be involved. And that will mean either an increase in taxes or money going towards a stadium that would otherwise be used for other projects. Kevin Brown, News Scene 2, City Hall.
This is Michael Shockett. If the $57 million is spent to renovate Memorial Stadium, the changes would mostly affect fans. That's what stadium manager Ralph Chase says. He took me on a tour of the stadium, pointing out what needs to be renovated. He knows best. This is his job, his bread and butter. Adding more seats is one of the top priorities. Chase says the plan is to build an upper deck over the bleachers in right and left field. That will add as many as 10,000 more seats. The increase in attendance would make it even harder to park, so renovations would go to a substantial improvement in parking. Also, more skyboxes. Improvements to the locker rooms and restaurants are needed.
And I think that we have to also, keep things in, proper perspective. Sometimes we feel that the facility just in itself would draw people. But I think that the quality of a team, has a great deal to do with the amount of people that might show up.
And if a new stadium is built, what would the city do with Memorial Stadium?
That's the $64,000 question.
City Councilman Jody Landers represents the Memorial Stadium district. He's not convinced a new stadium is the answer. But what about the early talk of high school teams playing on 33rd Street?
Frankly, I'm not sure that you can support a facility the size of Memorial Stadium with a few, amateur sport events a year.
Councilman Landers still likes the idea of keeping Memorial Stadium a baseball park and building a separate football complex. Former Colt quarterback Johnny Unitas feels the same way.
This certainly gives the mayor an out, as I see it, because now his commission has suggested that his group of people suggested they build a new complex. The mayor has been against it all these times, so, he's got a free walk now.
But before any decision is made on either front, Councilman Landers wants to make sure the report from the task force is justified and the figures are valid.
It's a resounding victory for the voters of Baltimore City who said in November that they want a new stadium in effect.
What residents voted for was a bill to allow public money to be spent at a site other than Memorial Stadium. But Memorial Stadium was the main objective of the mayor's sports task force looking to improve conditions in Baltimore.
The task force was unanimous that the best way to proceed was in renovating Memorial Stadium, and we rejected all thought of a new stadium in the beginning. The experts we have retained have convinced us otherwise.
The recommendation for a new stadium is just what sports fans have been waiting to hear.
Oh, this is a great victory, not only for the fans for Plex, but all sport fans in the state of Maryland.
The only pessimism came from Tony Ambridge, who represents the stadium area.
Well, I'd be deeply concerned as to what would happen to Memorial Stadium if, in fact, we were to abandon its use.
But in South Baltimore bars, nothing but cheers for the announcement.
Best idea you ever came up with, believe me.
I think it'd be a very good idea, especially down here where I live at. It's close for me to get to the games. They may have not lost the codes if they started the stadium 2 years ago.
They said they were going to build, they're trying to build one around here somewhere.
Here somewhere is Port Covington, the Chessie System rail yard. One possible site should financing be found, roughly $80 million. Regardless of which developer is selected, the redevelopment of the once glorious downtown shopping district will cost between $100 and $250 million and will take a dozen years to complete. The plan, drawn up by a city agency, will be transformed into reality by the developer, who will buy most of the property. But it will never look the same.
I don't think we could ever bring that back. We would hope to bring the people back.
How would it look?
Big department stores, where the Palace building is now, where Hochul Cone is now, will be smaller shops facing Howard and Lexington streets. There'll be awnings and glazed canopies and new graphics and street tree planting and landscaping and benches and for the convenience of shoppers and so forth. Between Howard and Utah, we're talking about expanding Lexington Mall for that block. There'll be an atrium, a tall, covered public space stretching between Hutzler's and the Heck Company, sort of like a mall.
Plus, the Lexington Market expansion will be tied into the project, along with lots of new office space.
But actual reconstruction along the Howard-Lexington Street area won't begin for another 1.5 to 2 years. However, the merchants aren't waiting till then to bring more shoppers down here. A lot of them are already fixing up their stores. And for the first time in more than 20 years, the Lexington Market will be open at night, Monday through Friday, beginning the day after Thanksgiving and throughout the Christmas shopping season. That should help the other merchants a lot. I'm Jack Bowden on the scene.